Hi, it's been forever, I know. I want to read the next chapter of our book, chapter 15, A Necessary Detour. Again, we're reading The Infinity Ring. It's book 4, Curse of the Ancients by Matt Delapine. As Rick hurried away from the subterranean prison cell, he kept repeating in his head the name of the boy he had just asked to locate. The boy that Babka claimed had the key to the cell. Okibi. He couldn't allow himself to forget. But at the same time, he was also thinking about the ancient locket Dak had handed him through the prison bars. It was the only reason he'd been able to answer Babka's strange question. In a conversation with Kiza, he remembered telling her that the most important things in the world was having friends. So he threw it out there to Babka, but he was completely shocked that he had gotten it right. Rick pulled the locket out now as he moved through the village looking for the boy. It was rusted shut, the metal on both sides dulled and badly dented. There was no way it was the locket Kiza had given to him before he warped away with Dak and Sarah. Even if it would he actually want it? The girl had done nothing but confuse him. One moment she seemed so excited for him to stay, and the next minute she was ordering him out of her village. Rick was tempted to boot the locket right to the bushes. He didn't, though. He slipped it back into his belt bag and continued repeating the boy's name in his head. Okibi. Rick had been walking around for half an hour before he spotted a small group of Mayan boys playing on the ball court. He called down to them, "By any chance, is one of you guys named Okibi?" The boys all looked at one another, shaking their heads. "You sure?" Rick said. "I'm not a real monk, I promise, and I have an important message from Babka." He wished he could ditch the Franciscan robe he was wearing. It was making the kids nervous. "He might be getting stuff out of the cave," one of the boys offered. "Did something bad happen?" another boy asked. "I don't think so," Rick said, not wanting to alarm them. "Babka just asked that I find Okibi." "You should try the cave," the boy said. Rick thanked them and started in the direction of the path that would lead them to the cave. He looked down at his robe, feeling entirely out of place. When he left Dak and Sarah earlier, he had ducked into the church to be alone and saw the robe hanging over a chair. He had changed into it without much thought, other than he no longer wanted to be wearing the clothes he wore when he knew Kiza. The new outfit he had told himself might help give him a fresh perspective. He didn't, of course. He left the church feeling just as confused as ever. Kiza must have realized something truly awful about him to change her mind so quickly. Rick pulled the locket out again. He just needed to get rid of it. All it did was remind him of what happened. Instead of hurling it into the bushes, though, he fired at it on the ground as hard as he could. Then he sat down on the boulder and looked up at the sky. The moon and the stars were out, and he thought how it was the same moon and stars that had hovered over Izmael almost 1,000 years ago. The sky didn't need a time machine to witness all that went on in the world, which included the time he spent with Kiza. The air was warm and humid. Far off to the east, he saw storm clouds. He watched them for a few seconds, trying to determine how quickly they would approach, and he shifted his attention back to the locket on the ground. He was surprised to see that it had broken into two pieces. He walked over and picked them up and stared at the inside of the back half where a single glyph had been written. Observatory. The handwriting reminded him of a message Kiza had carved into a boulder when she left him in the snake bracelet. Rick got chills as he looked up at the tall observatory. Could it really be Kiza trying to send him a message? The path had led up to the cave was just past the observatory. If Rick hurried, he could take a quick look inside before heading up the hill. He shoved the locket pieces back into his bag and took off running. The two monks near the front entrance didn't pay Rick any mind, most likely because of the robe he was wearing. He was able to duck right inside the huge observatory and check things out. It was quite old, though still functioning. Parts of the wall were peeling and cracked, The center of the ground was flat and the roof was open at the very top so Rick could see the sky. All around the main parts of the observatory were doors, maybe a dozen of them. Rick knew that what he was doing was insane, trying to figure out the meaning of a single clue written almost 1,000 years ago. Or maybe it wasn't a clue at all. Maybe it had been written by someone other than Kaisa. Or what if Kaisa had left the clue for someone else? This version of the observatory didn't even exist yet when she tried to hand him the locket. Another question started circling through his head. Why would a girl give a clue to someone she didn't even want around? Rick moved around the interior of the observatory anyway, opening every door, peering inside. They were mostly small rooms with dark desks and chairs. 3 of the doors were locked. One led to a staircase. Rick looked the skinny stairs all the way up to the ceiling and looked back down at the ground floor, trying to figure out what might be significant about the observatory. But it was all so ordinary. There was a thin walk-around up near the dome. He stepped out into it, moved carefully around every inch looking for some other kind of clue. But it was just a walkway. Nothing more. He eventually climbed back down the stairs, passing the ground floor and ducking into the basement. He opened the door and felt his way down the dark hallway, sliding his hands against the wall. He tried a door along the way that was locked. Then he saw that there was an open room at the far end of the hall, which looked like candlelight was flickering. Rick walked faster through the darkness and peeked inside. There were 3 women sitting on simple wooden chairs, sorting through wooden boxes. One looked up at Rick, her eyes growing wide with surprise. "Who are you?" she demanded, dropping what looked like another locket inside the box. "And what are you doing here?" All 3 women picked up their sewing and stood up, kicking the boxes beneath their feet. "We've been cleared by Brother Delanda to do our embroideries here," the shortest of them said. "They're for the church," the first woman added. "Don't worry," Rick told the woman. "I'm not a real monk. I was just looking for a girl." It was clear they weren't doing anything for the church. "A girl?" a short woman asked. "No one is allowed to be down here but the 3 of us with our embroidery." A woman, Rick corrected himself. "She lived a long, long time ago, and her name is Kaisa." The women all looked at one another, shaking their heads. "Her uncle was King Ithic," Rick added. "I believe he was responsible for building this observatory." "I've never heard of anyone named Kaisa," the short woman said, "or a King Ithic for that matter." "Have you?" she asked her friends. "Never," both of them said. The taller woman glanced at the box behind her. Then she turned back at Rick and lowered her eyes. He saw that she had a large birthmark on the right side of her face. Rick nodded. "Thanks for your help." "Where are you from?" the woman with the birthmark said, cutting him off. "Me?" Rick said, he didn't know quite how to answer. "Well, I'm from a faraway village." The woman continued staring at him. "And what is the name of this village?" Rick leaned against the wall behind him and said, "Oh, it's very small. Most people haven't heard of it." The other 2 women were looking at the woman with the birthmark. "Anyway," Rick said, pushing off the wall, "I'm sorry to have disturbed you." The woman remained standing in front of their boxes until Rick left the room. He hurried back up the stairs and out of the observatory, trying to forget about the cryptic message inside the locket and the women and the fact that there may be additional lockets inside those wooden boxes they were hiding. Right now, he needed to concentrate on fighting the boy Babka, who asked him to find. Rick stared up at the dark path toward the cave when he collided suddenly with someone hurrying past down the path. They both tumbled into the bushes. Rick, slightly dazed, raised his hand to find a boy lying in the bushes beside him. "Oh, Kibby?" he asked hesitantly. The boy sat up and looked at him. Rick remembered his robe and said, "Don't worry, I'm not a real monk. But is it really you, Okibi?" The boy shrugged and looked around. Rick scrambled to his feet and leaned down over the boy. "A man named Babka asked me to find you. He's in the village holding cell with 2 of his friends, and he claims you'll know what to do." The boy stood up and looked about Dak's age. I knew it, he cried. Knew what? Rick asked. There was nothing left in the cave. The boy wiped a hand across his face. They took it all, everything. Someone stole from you? Rick asked. The monks did, the boy said. Why would they just leave us alone? Why? We aren't hurting anyone. Rick felt the injustice in his chest. Come, he told the boy. I'll take you to Babka. No, O'Keefe said. My brother says I must always wait until deep in the night when everyone has fallen asleep. Then I will bring him the key. Rick looked over at Ismail. For the first time since they arrived in his new time period, he wondered about the break until what they needed to fix. He had been moping around long enough. It was time to get back to his life's work, being a historian. Follow me, he said to O'Keefe with a new sense of determination. We can wait inside the observatory. You tell me when the time is right to free your people, and I will come alongside you to assist. O'Keefe looked at him, nodding. They started back down the path together. Rick gripped the locket pieces in his satchel, promising to himself he would remain absolutely focused for the remainder of the mission. And that's that chapter. We have 5 more chapters in this book, and then we'll be done. The next chapter is called The Other Historians, and I'm going to try to read that as soon as I can and get these chapters uploaded for y'all. And then we can open the hidden message. Have a great day. Talk to you later.